Hello. We are in the fourth week of Advent. The four candles are lit. We are on the seventh part of the final chapter of Ishtar's Odyssey by Arnold de Trede. Far to the left of Bethlehem, some movement in the hills had caught Ishtar's eye. He stared through the dark for a long moment, trying to discern shadow from shadow. Then he remembered how Jotham had taught him to look just to the side of a thing you want to see in the dark. Suddenly he understood what he was seeing. Men on horseback. Moments later he could see they carried long spears and wore the uniforms of King Herod's soldiers. "Father, look!" he cried. Salamar looked where Ishtar pointed, but saw nothing. "It's a squad of soldiers from Herod." Salamar sighed heavily, but made no move. "You must send your men to scare them off, or they will harm our friends and find the Messiah," Ishtar pleaded. "Ishtar, I should think you'd understand by now that we do not follow the whims of men, the orders of foreign kings, or the folly of our own hearts. We follow only the stars." "They'll kill them all!" Ishtar shouted. "How can you stand there and do nothing?" Salamar dropped to one knee and looked Ishtar straight in the eye. "I am not doing nothing," he said gently. "I am doing my duty and obeying the commands of my sheikh. I have sworn my life to him, and I yield to the higher authority of the heavens. Right now they all demand that I stay right where I am." Ishtar started to protest again, but Salamar stopped him with one finger on the boy's lips. "But there is one," Salamar continued, "one who is bound by no such oath. There is one in this camp tonight who is free to lead men into battle, to save Jotham and Bartholomew and the newborn king." Ishtar scanned the faces of the camp. Not his uncles, he decided. They were bound by the same oath as his father. Surely not the servants, not even Kazim, who was a brave man, but could not legally give orders to others. Ishtar looked back at his father with furrowed brow. "Who?" he asked. Salamar leaned in even closer and whispered in Ishtar's ear. "It is you," he said, "son of a counselor to the Sheikh of Amaranth, a prince of Persia by right and tradition, a man of honor, of wit and courage. You must lead the rescue," Salamar concluded, "or I fear for the lives of our friends." "That's ridiculous!" Ishtar yelled. He broke away from his father, paced wildly around the fire, 1,000 wasps buzzing in his head. He wished he were back in Amaranth with his servants and baths and fine linens. He wished he had never been forced to come on this stupid trip to spend his days covered in dust, sore and exhausted. How could he, a mere boy, lead a rescue? Was he not full of fear? His father had lied. There is no honor inside me, Ishtar thought. No wit, and certainly no courage. But then Ishtar's thoughts turned to the many events of the last several months. In that time he had turned 11, still a boy, but on the precipice of manhood. In those months he had learned to endure hard days without a second thought, had learned to take in stride discomfort and hunger, and even scorching hot desert. He had talked to many people, had encountered many ideas, and had learned many things. And then he remembered the story Nathan had told him, a story about the god Jehovah and Ishtar's role in Jehovah's plans. At that moment, a new thought struck Ishtar, and he stopped, dead in his tracks. He looked again at Jotham and Bartholomew, almost to Bethlehem's edge now. He watched Tabitha and thought of the courage she showed in facing down the Romans. He turned slightly and saw Herod's men closing in on the town. Perhaps, Ishtar thought to himself, perhaps now there resides in me something else. Perhaps just a bit of... Suddenly Ishtar turned back to the camp. He saw the eyes of his father watching him, as well as the eyes of his uncles and Kazim and all the other men. Without another word to his father, he yelled, Kazim, gather 10 of our best men and bring me my horse. Prepare for battle." Ishtar was amazed that the camp immediately sprang into action on his orders. He leaped onto his horse as the other men and Kazim rode up on theirs. "If there be a God of the Jews," he yelled, "may he ride with us tonight." With another yell, Ishtar led the band of 12 down the road at breakneck speed. And here's a picture of them riding down the road. Ishtar. As Kazim had taught him on the journey across the desert, he trusted his horse to see and follow the road while he himself kept an eye on Herod's thugs. There's only one more corner in the road, he realized, before those thugs will be able to see all the commotion in Bethlehem and know something has happened. He whipped his horse to run faster. Ishtar reached the curve in the road just before Herod's men would round it. He yelled over his shoulder, "6 to the left, 6 to the right, show them the Parthian shot." In a moment, Ishtar and his men surrounded the soldiers in 2 circles, moving in opposite directions. Every one of them shot their arrows backwards from their mounts. The arrows stabbed the ground in front of Herod's men, who were completely confused and terrified. Ishtar gave a yell, and the Persians slid to a stop, dirt and rock flying, with Ishtar in the middle of the road directly in front of the leader. A moment earlier, Herod's men had been sleepy with routine, but now snapped alert and reached for their weapons. "Hold!" Ishtar yelled, and suddenly there was silence. The leader finally found his voice and growled, "Who is it that commands a squadron of the mighty King Herod to hold?" "It is I, Ishtar," he yelled, standing tall in his stirrups, "Prince of Persia, son of Salamar, royal advisor to His Highness Sheikh Konarek, commander of the Parthian armies, ruler of half the peoples of the known world, decider of the fate of millions." Ishtar stopped, sat back in his saddle, leaned forward toward the leader, looked him straight in the eye, and whispered, "Decider of the fate of one?" The leader found his wits again and said, "Move aside. We have been sent by King Herod himself to search the town of Bethlehem. Why should I fear a sheik who sends a small boy to do his bidding?" Ishtar kicked his horse softly and walked it forward until his face was inches from the other leader. "I have stared the cobra in the face and won the contest," he said, speaking in Hebrew now. "I have felt the grasp of the devil's sand around my knees and walked away from its death. I have had my animal shot from under me, had my enemies attempt to poison me, and outsmarted the sting of the scorpion. I have captured an assassin through wit and cunning, and I have led my people across the desert Badiat Asham in the face of a Shamal sandstorm. I have overcome all this and more, and survived it either on my own strength or with the protection of the gods. Either way, I suggest you take me seriously." The leader gulped, looked around nervously at the men and horses that surrounded them, and then back at Ishtar. "What is it I can do for Ishtar, Prince of Persia?" As if conspiring with a fellow thief, Ishtar said, "You can turn around and leave this place at once. This is my territory. I am here doing that which Herod requests, and Herod has charged me with reporting to him the location of the new Jewish king. I myself searched Bethlehem not 2 hours ago, and I tell you truthfully that I have seen no child king there. Now go your way and search where no one has yet searched. It is an insult to me, to my sheik, and to all of Persia to presume you need to supervise us." The leader took another long moment to think. He looked again at the Persian warriors surrounding him. Then, without another word to Ishtar, gave the order for his men to go back the way they had come. Ishtar's men relaxed, gave a shout of victory, and congratulated him on his courage and guile. Kazim just sat back in his saddle and smiled. As they rode back toward the rest of their group, Ishtar looked toward the heavens and said under his breath, "Finally, a god who answers prayers!" Halfway back to the campsite, they met up with Salamor and the others headed up the road toward them. The soldiers of Herod have decided they should go home for the night, Ishtar reported to his father. And we are headed toward Bethlehem, his father reported to Ishtar. The star has told us it is time to visit this new king. Think about this. What are the many ways God watched over Ishtar throughout the story and led him to the place where God could use him to do good?